and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily, reaching you live from here in Lagos. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And from Abuja, good morning. I'm Maokwe Yusuf. Welcome.
Well, just to say that today is November 18th.
I was waiting for that.
Yes, yes. And it's a Wednesday morning. But there was an interesting conversation that began, I think, some days ago about the population of the world. UNFPA says we are finally 8 billion people.
Yes.
And naturally, the first thing that I went to look for was, what's Nigeria's population?
Well, shooting above 230, 240, that's the official figure.
Official or unofficial? I don't even know. I think it depends on whose data you're looking at.
Unofficial figure. Well, there are different benchmarks as far as that is concerned. Well, the UNFPA is globally celebrating world population.
Celebrating?
Hitting 8 billion. 8 billion is a huge mass. And the message is a world of infinite possibilities. Well, those possibilities could either be positive or negative. And if we examine our own current realities, they are not necessarily, impressive. They're not satisfactory. In fact, they're a bit unsettling. And the message is for, world governments to prioritize decent work, in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, decent work, health and reproductive rights for especially women, and all of the other goals, too, that world governments should plan to hit. I'd like to particularly talk about health and reproductive rights of women, and girl-child education is at the heart of it. Yes, indeed, education is also one of the Sustainable Development Goals, and we must make informed choices, as said by the country director of the UNFPA. And what about informed choices? If we look at the trajectory of leading women leaders, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, we look at other, leading women leaders in Nigeria, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, the Minister of State for Trade, Mariam Katagum. These women rose, to prominence because of informed choices, at the informative stage. So governments, particularly in the North, must prioritize the girl-child education above laws. If, parents just decide to do what is right, especially at that very low rung of the ladder, by the girl child, laws would not matter as to where exactly they set the exact age for child marriage for children. So these issues are at the heart of health and reproductive rights for children. It is that empowered woman that can rise to, positions of prominence, of leadership, that ideal visibility where they can make choices, good choices for themselves and for the generations coming after them. I wonder what aspect of, the world hitting world population that you would like to address, Ayo.
Well, there are so many other angles to it, but first to begin from the angle that you spoke about, the girl child and all of that. The woman, the UNFPA representative said yesterday at that same meeting that about 31% of women are physically abused. And that definitely is something that should give anyone concern. There are many angles to that conversation. It brings to my own mind two things. Number one, something former President Obasanjo said, it was last year, concerning our population as it is growing, and the opportunities therein and the challenges that we have to contend with if we do not do the right things. UNFPA also said Nigeria may hit, and that was about July this year, that our population as a nation may hit 400 million by 2050 and will become the world's most populous nation. That is definitely a concern. Is it going to be an opportunity or an albatross around our neck? Hey, 2050 is how many years ago? How many years from now? It's just tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned.
About 2 decades, a couple of decades.
So it definitely isn't something easy for us to contend with. It's something that we have to plan for. We know it is going to happen. Question is, what are we doing? So many things that she mentioned. She mentioned education, mentioned health, and for me, those are two critical things. You can't be healthy without knowing what to do, how to be educated about your health, and you can't be educated if you are not healthy. So it's a catch-22 of sorts for me. We just have to, as a nation, get certain things right, certain parameters right, in order to be able to do right by ourselves. But always a lot to say about this. Marco, what's your take?
Well, let's see what our census says about our figures next year. We're planning to hold a census, I think, sometime in April of 2023 after the elections. So hopefully it should cause no controversy about the figures that will come out of the elections. But let's see what our own National Population Commission will say about what our figure is and whether we'll be able to successfully this time around do a count that is without controversy, because oftentimes we do this from estimates. The last time we did anything useful, credible, even though controversial, was in 2006. Every other time what we have just done is estimate just how many we might be. But 2023, we have said that we're going to do a census. So let's see whether that happens and where we are on the ladder. But I know that right now we're supposed to be, is it number 6 in the world? 6th most populous nation in the world. Now, as you rightly asked, is that an asset or is it an albatross? So far, so good. From the trajectory that we seem to be heading down, it looks like we're carrying an albatross. These things have implications for the environment, and when they have implications for the environment, they have implications for conflict. We're beginning to see that. We've seen that over and again. You might say that is a lack of management, a proper management of our resources, not just our human resources now, but also of our natural resources, that we're beginning to see us fight over land, fight over water. These resources, as you very well know, are finite. There's only so much land, that we have, unless you want to go and start filling the sea, which we're already beginning to do. And then there's only so much drinkable water. So we have to find ways to renew this. But thankfully, water is a renewable resource. But the question is, are we renewing it? Are we prudently using it in such a way that it can serve everyone? We know that our Lake Chad, for instance, has been drying out. There have been talks around recharging Lake Chad to see how it is that we can, make sure that, economies in that particular region do not suffer as a result of what we're seeing and the conflict that is springing out of there. There have been talks about building a great green wall. We know we have a great green wall project, an entire commission, as a matter of fact, looking after the great green wall. How far we've gone with that is another kettle of fish. But these are all the challenges we're seeing, especially with desertification encroaching from the north of the country. So our population has, also, let's say, implications for our food security. We witnessed recently floods that, affected farming populations and the livelihoods of many farmers. And if there is food scarcity and many people do not have food to eat, it automatically has implications for our safety and our security and our health, all of them at once. And all of this is happening at a time when our population is growing. So are we really thinking, are we wearing our thinking hats about the implications of a growing population? I mean, this could really be a strength, but I do not think that we have won any strategic hat to make this number that we're seeing a strength. And so it is no surprise that we're currently where we are with regards to our security, our health, and all the many other indices that we're seeing pointing downwards. So let us hope that this will serve as a wake-up call, that even as we go into next year with the population census, which we intend to do, that we're not just counting for the sake of counting. We're counting because we know that we've dilly-dallied for too long, and we need to be more strategic about our population figures and to do something more, let's say drastic now. I've used the word strategic many times, but we need to really plan for the future of our country our growing population, so that we will somehow, you know, finally make it an asset rather than the albatross that we seem to be carrying on our necks right now. Ayo.
Well, add to what you said, the largest chunk of the population in Nigeria, which are young people. I mean, that's been said over and over again. Make 50% plus of Nigeria's population, more than about 70% of the voting population, certainly something that should give us serious concern as we build up to the elections. And you also talked about, you know, our land assets and all of that. Fly over Nigeria, any part of the country, what are you seeing? You're seeing land, you're seeing farmlands, you're seeing opportunities. Question is, as you asked, Malkwe, are we being strategic in channeling these resources? It's a question that needs answering before another 20 years hits us. Let's flip to the papers right now and look at what the dailies are reporting for us. Closely related to the conversation we just had is what is heading or leading the stories in the Nigerian News Direct this morning. And what you find there is this: average Nigerians risk threat of poverty trap as inflation hits 21.09%. Certainly something that should give concern. Risk of poverty trap. And it also speaks to, you know, the issue we just talked about, population planning, census, and all those things. Just wait and hope that, you know, we can do better by our people. Look at the riders. Stakeholders lament high cost of living crisis. Experts highlight flooding. Naira redesign 2023 election as inflation influencing factors.
Oh dear, oh dear. I never knew Naira redesign could be responsible.
Oh, well, you know,
could be a factor.
Remember that the moment the announcement was made, the Naira dollar price had a relationship.
A gymnastic.
So but now seems to be stabilizing gradually. But that's the lead story of the paper, among several others. APC flags off presidential campaign in Jos, urges Nigerians to shun oppositions, and so many other stories. But let's leave it there for the Nigerian News Direct.
I'm interested in The Guardian this morning, and I know you would also, particularly if you follow me as I take you through the lead story. It's a bit of politics. Obi replies Soludo as Atiku canvasses restructuring at LBS. Let's take a look at the riders. Obi, I did my little as Anambra governor. Soludo should do better as a professor. The next one goes thus: we have dragged Soludo to deities over Obi, says Ohaneze. Soludo's comments born out of envy as ascribed to the Labour Party. And lastly, the last of the riders, Atiku Obi set agenda on exchange rates, others. Well, it seems as if the last is certainly not being heard about the exchange between the governor of Anambra State and the Labour Party presidential candidate. Well, let's hope that this debate, you know, it's not a debate now, it's an exchange. It engenders the real debate on how to tackle inflation, how to tackle insecurity, how to tackle the challenge of increase in population. I think that's what Nigerians want to hear. And let's take a look at a few more stories before we exit The Guardian, going beneath the nameplates to see these ones. Ahead of 2023, editors resolve to put political actors on toes. That's the way to go.
It'll be good to see how.
To see how. Debate is one of them. And Channels Television is doing just that with the town hall meeting.
They're editors, right? They're editors. Some of the media houses are perhaps owned by politicians. So is the principle of he who pays the piper dictates the tune going to play? It's just a question. I'm just asking.
Well, those limitations are not necessarily insurmountable.
Well, I agree with you.
Yeah.
After all, it doesn't matter who owns the hospital. What matters is that the doctor does the job.
The patients must be treated. That's what matters.
So we are the patients now. Okay, anyway.
All right. But this one says, Buhari Adamu Tinubu flag of presidential campaign in Jos. That's a huge talking point currently. And this sad one, Lagos lawmaker dies after attending APC Jos rally. And lastly, court stops Nigeria Air over pressure from local airlines. That's you find that inside page 2 of the Guardian newspaper. And the picture spread is also interesting and instructive about current realities. Inflation hitting 21%. That's it for the Guardian newspaper.
Indeed, Leadership Newspapers also has that story for you, just beneath the nameplate. Rising energy cost, depreciating naira, push inflation rate to 21.09%. And you know, oftentimes when you look at how these figures are arrived at, when you look at the indexes that make up the basket, composite, the individual items in the basket, you find out that they are not evenly priced, and this is just an average. If you look at some of the items in that basket, you'll be surprised, you know, or maybe you'll be surprised at the average that we have actually arrived at, because the places where it is really, really pinching, inflation is certainly higher than 21.09%. But look at this, the lead story there says 2023 presidency, Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, market selves at Jos Rally, Lagos Parley. So you find details on page 4 of the paper. APC flag bearer banks on PMB, 22 governors, says education, security, agriculture, priorities. I'll remove fuel subsidy, ask for debt forgiveness. That's from Atiku. Obi woos Lagos business community as Labour Party declares Soludo a distraction. Page 4 is where you'll see the details there. You also have a number of other stories just at the corner. Will complete all projects before leaving office, attributed to the governor of Rivers State, Governor Wike. He said that over and over again. Page 6 is where you find details. And then also something that came out of the meeting that the editors had, editors to play down on reports promoting division. Page 6 is where you'll see that. And just on top of the nameplate, Nigeria Air, court freezes federal government's pact with Ethiopian Airlines. That story is on page 25. And look at this political story. Senate race, Akpabio contests exclusion at Supreme Court. Let's leave it there.
Take a look at this Nigeria newspaper on its front page, also talking about, should I say, the tiff between the current and former governors of Anambra State. 2023, Obi hits back at Soludo. He's a professor and I'm a trader, so he'll be able to do things better than I did. I've done my bit as a trader. Now the professor is there and he will do his own as a professor. Well, the two gentlemen flank the left and right of that quote. The details for you are on page 4 of the paper. The picture there is right under the, others on the above it. APC campaign flag off in Jos. See the pictures there, as well as the story right under. Fireworks from Jos as APC kicks off campaign. Tinubu slams Atiku Obi as Lagos lawmaker dies after rally. That's a sad saw one right there, but I don't know how that will even play out. But that's what you have on the front page of the paper this morning. Right above, well, right beside the nameplate, oil theft. We've always wanted to know exactly what's happening. But here's the update. Navy drags rogue vessel to court on 5-count charge. Navy drags rogue vessel. The vessel, not the people, it's the vessel.
It's the vessel.
Yeah.
The vessel, yet
again. Now been taken to court. Yeah. Each time I read stories like this, it just reminds me of the time the police arrested some goats. But hey, that's this Nigerian newspaper today.
Well, it reminds me of how a vessel was set ablaze. And then that drew the eye of Nigerians about how evidence should be destroyed instead of preserved, such that the perpetrators of the theft could be prosecuted in court.
But of course,
there was a defense provided for that action. This time, the vessel is the one that has been taken to court
on a 5-count charge.
Is the vessel an entity?
Well, I don't know. It's the law, okay? So that there's such things happen in law.
Well, let's see what's happening on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Little on law, a lot on politics, particularly the front page. 2023's fight to define Nigeria's soul. That's ascribed to the APC presidential candidate Tinubu. Let's take a look at the riders. Says Nigeria won't sink as Buhari, Adamu, Tinubu, others flag off APC campaign in Jos. Nobody will deny opposition party its mandate if it wins. That's loaded and is ascribed to the president. I'm not going to dissect it, so I'm just going to leave you to make up your mind on that one. All right, let's look at some more stories. There are quite a few that will catch your fancy. Let's go at the bottom strip here to see this one. CAN starts engagement with presidential candidates to meet Tinubu today. We saw a report from yesterday and very low on participation, particularly from presidential aspirants. Let's hope that that improves. This one at the extreme corner at the bottom strip, ASU begins protest against no work, no pay policy. It's a page 7 read. So that dust is yet to settle. And the students, I believe, are not particularly sitting comfortably in school as they learn, because anything could happen, because the issues have not been, decisively resolved.
How do you even think that the students are taking whatever it is they're getting from their lecturers now, knowing that the lecturers are not 100% happy that they are getting half pay? I don't know if decisions are taken cyclically, if we always take a 360-degree look at the issues before certain decisions are taken. Well, you may have issues with ASU as the federal government, may have issues with ASU as an association and the lecturers as individuals. But don't forget that there's something that goes with the psyche. I don't know if these things are rocket science. I mean, you cut my pay and you expect me to go do full work, and there are some people whose lives and destinies depend on my job. Come on. We were just talking about population the other time, and how that education and health are crucial to human development index, which of course the results we hope, the report about that we hope to get maybe by tomorrow or something. Now, if education isn't getting its full value because some people are not 100% happy with what they're doing, exactly what signals are we sending to the future?
To the future. And not forgetting that this is a consequence of the 2009 agreement that was not honored. The other funding issues have not been resolved. This is just a disagreement over no work, no pay. It's really a sad one. Finally, before we exit the Vanguard newspaper, well, just before finally, let's take a look at this one. We stand with CAN above the nameplates now. We stand with CAN on Muslim ticket ascribed to Catholic Knights, and it's a page 8 read inside the Vanguard. I'll not exit Vanguard without taking a look at Mr. and Mrs. And
yes,
there's an interesting conversation between Mr. and Mrs. this morning. I'm a career woman. I can't do everything in this house. If I have to cook, you'll have to go to the market. That's Mrs. And Mr. answers by saying, my mother didn't ask for a mumu son, and God answered her prayer.
Sarcasm, grade A. Grade A sarcasm.
Sarcasm. That's the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Makwe?
Well, let us see how they continue like that. Daily Trust is what I'm holding up for you in my hand. Nigeria won't sink under my watch. That's attributed to the candidate of the APC, Tinubu. Pledges to build on Buhari's achievements. Our country needs Tinubu. That's attributed to Buhari. Why Northerners should vote Jagaban. That's according to El Rufai. Shiwaju's gaffe on God bless PDP. Prophetic. That's according to the PDP. I don't know if you heard that, where he said, God bless PD, then he goes APC, like he just cut himself just in time. Page 4 is what you see, and on social media you see that people have already started designing a new party called the PDAPC. So page 4 is where you see the details. World's population hits 8 billion. That's, we already discussed that earlier. Page 5 is where you said fire gut store at Kano's Senga Market. It's on page 10. Oh dear, this is a very terrible story. Clergyman defiles 2 sisters in Ogun, impregnates 1. This really needs to stop. I do not know what we need to do about it, but if we think hard enough about it, about a situation whereby those who are in authority keep taking advantage of those who they're supposed to be leading, especially in situations like this. Clergyman, indeed. Page 10 is where you find details. I'm sure we'll be able to find a solution to it. FTX exchange collapse stares panic as crypto traders seek regulation. Oh, really? They're seeking regulation now? Page 19. Page 19 is where you get details. This is not to, downplay the, the burden or the pain of those who have lost money with this. Is the fact that crypto did not have any regulation, but those who, took to it said it was better that way, that somehow it regulated itself. But looking at just what has happened with FTX, people are now saying, are you sure we shouldn't have regulation at the end of the day? So these are valid questions. Page 19 is where you'll see it. You also have some of the back and forth which we witnessed yesterday. Anambra, I've done my part. It's your turn to deliver. Obi replies Soludo. It's on page 25 of Daily Trust newspapers. Let's leave it there for the paper.
And very quickly, let's take a look at the Daily Times newspaper this morning. And it also leads with that Jos event of the APC. It's captioned this way: 2023, I will build on Buhari's achievements. That's ascribed to the presidential candidate, Tinubu. Promises to create opportunities for youth. That's the first of the riders. Buhari pledges to work for ex-Lagos governor's election. Finally, there's a consensus within the party that there's some achievements to build on. But amongst Nigerians...
But whether or not it's collective, that's another thing.
That's another thing entirely.
Well, but, I will build on Buhari's
achievements. Yeah.
What does that mean? Because, Peter Drucker said there is what is not said is also as loud. So, what is that saying? I'm going to dump some things and build on achievements? I don't know. I'm just... Well,
initially, the campaign was predicated on his achievements in Lagos while he was Lagos governor. And the president did not pass up on that, and he had to say that those are supposed to be talking about his achievements, but not doing so. So that's the reason this is compelling to listen to this morning. So, well, it's a debate for you to, also provide your own thoughts on. As we go beneath the nameplate, this is another interesting one. at the bottom strip rather. Fuel subsidy to go by June 2023, says Finance Minister. And lastly, further down, FG counters ASU's objection to substantive suit on strike. That's a page 2 read inside the Daily Times newspaper. So which of these stories, are compelling enough or, at the heart of the matter for you this morning? Send us your thoughts. We'd like to hear from you. And, of course, some of them will, be our talking points after this break. Stay with Sunrise Daily on Channels Television.
We must target, and we will, I assure you, target growth at very least. We must achieve GDP growth of minimum 6%, if not 10%. We shall continue to press reforms in the sector that will increase productivity, improve farm incomes while lowering food prices, and bring enough food to the table of ordinary people. We cannot produce without constant electricity. I am determined. Dear Nigerians, I am determined, I repeat, to give you the affordable and reliable power you need to drive your businesses in a way that lifts the entire economy and ordinary person. With my thought on security, we shall continue to fight against insecurity. My experiences in both private sector and elective office afford me a special appreciation of economic potency that close collaboration between government and the business community can bring. Allow me to share a few ideas that provide some insight into my vision for a more prosperous and secure nation, where hope is renewed and despair is rebuffed.
But I believe security generally affects all of us wherever we come from. There is security in the Southeast. They call them IPOD. They are talking about Biafra. Biafra died about how many years ago? What we require is to engage the Southeast. What are your problems? It's a question of engaging. So every part of the country has its own peculiar insecurity challenges. The challenges are not uniform all across the country. So that's why, again, the security issue becomes a concurrent issue. Federal government is involved, state governments are involved, local governments are involved. there are kidnappings and this and that. In my state, what I convinced the government, I said, look, set up a vigilante in every village. We contribute money. We don't have incidents of insecurity, very, very minimal. So it is an issue that is concurrent, meaning that federal, states, and local government, and even smaller communities, have a responsibility, provided you engage them and you discuss how to confront the challenge. So security is everybody's challenge.
Well, that's what we're talking about this morning. What do the candidates have for you? You have heard from the candidate of the APC who flagged off his rally yesterday in Jos. Well, the clip we played you there wasn't from Jos. It was from an earlier engagement which he had with the business community in Lagos. But that of the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar was at a party that happened yesterday in Lagos, and all of them have been sharing their plans for Nigerians, if what they will do if and when elected. So let's interrogate some of those plans a little more, because I'm sure that you want to hear from them. This morning we have with us two gentlemen. Dr. Onoha Nachi is a member of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council. He's a financial expert, and he's joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Mr. Nachi. Can you hear us? Okay, I do not know if he's online just yet. But right here in our Abuja studios, we have with us Mr. Ali Mohammed Ali, who is the Deputy Director of Media and Publicity of the APC Presidential Campaign Council. You're welcome to Sunrise City this morning.
Good morning, viewers. It's good to be here, Mope. Finally, I'm having the pleasure of meeting you.
It's good to see you too. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, yesterday you finally flagged off your your presidential campaign rally in Jos, the Plateau State capital. I was just a little curious. Is there a reason why Jos was chosen, apart from the fact that that's the state of the Director General of the campaigns?
Well, thank you very much for that question. A lot of people have wondered why settle on Jos. Why pick Jos? Well, for a number of reasons. Jos has, well, Plateau State and Jos in particular has played host to events like this from time immemorial. But if I take you back to about 30 years ago, it was in Jos that actually the late Abiola got the presidential mandate to run and nearly coasted to victory, but for the annulment of the June 12th, that watershed election in 1993, that has shaped the consequence of that, shaped the nation's political trajectory. So yes, Jos for that, and for the fact that is the home state of the Director General of the Presidential Campaign Council, and because Jos is a melting pot of salt. In Jos, in the city of Jos, you find all Nigerians. Nigerians who over the years have turned Jos into a home. In Jos, you find virtually all Nigerians from the southeast, southwest, and of course the natives there who have became literally blended into one citizen, if you like. Apart from, of course there will be differences along the usual segmentation, tribe, religion. So Jos was chosen for these reasons, and because, like I said, it has played host in the past for momentous occasions, one of which, like I listed, is the emergence. It was in Jos that Abiola emerged as the SDP flag bearer in the 1993 election.
And so, it looks like there are so many elements of that particular elections or that particular political season which the APC seems to be appropriating to its own campaigns for 2023. A lot of it, let me give you one, similarities will include the Muslim ticket. The second one will be the slogan, Hope 93, is still very strongly imprinted in the minds of many Nigerians. Now the campaign of your party, or the slogan, is Hope 2023.
Renewed hope, actually.
Renewed hope.
Yes.
Well, there's hope right there.
Yeah.
So the questions as to, do you see, is this some resurrection of the, will I say, of what happened in 1993? What precisely is the affinity between your candidate and the that of MKO Abiola, who ran in 1993?
Well, apart from the fact that our candidate was among the young foot soldiers at the time, Abiola ran and coasted to victory, nearly coasted to victory, but for the annulment, which has been recognized posthumously that he actually was president-elect at the time, but for the annulment. And now, he was among the young foot soldiers, if you like, at the time, and then learning from Abiola. And Abiola, you can see, even now, like you rightly pointed out, there is striking similarities between the Tinubu-Shettima ticket and the Abiola-Kingibe ticket. Both of them are Muslims, and incidentally, both of them were from the southwest and the northeast. And 30 years later, or thereabout, if you like, there is a resurrection of a similar ticket. Now, if you look at it very well also, is the fact that in more ways than one, Asiwaju has, if you like, an uncanny resemblance with the political trajectory of Abiola, except that this time around, with the support of all Nigerians, Asiwaju is coasting home to victory. From all indication, because he's the candidate to beat. Now, we've seen that the signs are all too clear. You can see from the renewed attack on so many other things.
What I was actually asking is if this was deliberate. I mean, if the choice was like... Because he could have run with a different slogan. He could have run with a number of, he could have made different choices, but it does look like there's been a deliberate attempt to actually pick some of the, well, I say element of that particular ticket. That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah, well, you see, the thing is, hope is the thing that keeps us alive. I mean, that keeps, without hope, if there is despair. And so I think hope is something that is a lingering theme. It's a theme that would linger till the end of time. So when there is no hope, I mean, you could say it's deliberate, but at the same time, it reminds you of the past, but gives you hope for the future. This is what I'm saying.
Well,
yes.
For many Nigerians, I mean, at that time, since you want to go back to the past a little, yes, there would have been a reason why hope would have been, very appropriate as, well, I say, as a slogan, because then a lot of Nigerians were yearning for civilian rule, and, hope was one of the, well, maybe not civilian rule, they were yearning for democracy.
Absolutely.
And there's a world of difference between civilian rule and a democracy.
Absolutely.
And perhaps for a number of people, hope would have been appropriate. But we are in a democracy, or we like to think that we are in a democracy. And in this democracy, your party has been at the helm of affairs now for 7 years, thereabout. And so for a number of people, they believe that the 2023 elections is going to be a referendum on how your party has been able to deliver in the last 7 years plus of its stewardship. So they're wondering why hope might, will still be the, will I say, the sing-song here. I do not know if, I mean, since you say it's renewed hope for what, precisely? That they should keep hope alive, that things are not going well? Is it an admission that things are not really going in the trajectory that they ought to be going?
Well, certainly things are not going the way they should be. When you're dealing with human beings. When you're dealing with people, you're dealing with other factors, so many factors, some of them outside your control, one of which is that people, you are dealing with human beings. Human beings are not, they're not logical people. You don't expect that people will move from point A to point B. In between, it takes a lot of persistence, perseverance between the leaders and the followers to get to that desired destination. So yes, you will say that, depending on how you look at it, I am an incurable optimist. Matters of perspective. Some people will see the cup as half full, some will see it as half empty. I am in the tribe of those who see the cup as half full rather than half empty. But going forward from what you've asked, is it the idea of a renewed hope? Is it a mission of despair, hopelessness? There is no light at the end of the, well, let me use that cliche, light at the end of the dark tunnel. When you look around, what do you feel as a Nigerian who on a daily basis interrogate other Nigerians aspiring to lead or to give commentaries on our nation's life in the last couple of years? If you take back from 2015 till date, if you look at it on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate the APC? I would say the APC has done fairly well. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give it somewhere around 7. Why not 8? Because, look, what we envisage, what the APC envisage, given the certain economic realities and even worldwide, Nigeria is not insulated from these vagaries of financial instability worldwide. So many factors have helped to, influence what we have today. The economic, if you like, downturn, which is global, and if you like, even pockets of insecurity, if you like. But then look at the time APC took over in 2015 and now, look at that. If you look at it dispassionately, a lot of Nigerians will give the verdict, yes, it has done fairly okay, given what the APC met on ground, given the challenges it faced and how the APC has managed to navigate this very thorny, if you like, minefield to get to where we are. So I won't say renewed hope. I would say, it's hope rekindled, because depending on how you look at it, I like to say I'm an incurable optimist. I believe strongly that Nigeria may not have been where, it's not where it should be, but we're not where we were in 2015.
Well, you're a politician, and we've been told that politicians usually are incurable optimists. They see light where most people are not exactly seeing it. But, you say you give your party 7 for what it has done. What it has done and what Nigerians feel are 2 different kettles of fish. And I hope you understand and you can appreciate that. Today, as we speak, we understand that our, what they call that now, the inflation figures released yesterday have gone up to 21, or a little over 21%.
12.5%.
Yes, thereabouts. So that is currently where we are from where we were maybe when this government took over. We were certainly not at 20%. It's gone up. If you were to take a look at our exchange rate, even though the official exchange rate has remained somewhat stable, the unofficial exchange rate has, gone through the roof. And we know that we're still an largely import-dependent country. And that has had an effect on the pockets of many Nigerians, of ordinary Nigerians. If you look at our education sector, it was only recently that lecturers went back to classes after almost 10 months of being on strike. And even at that, there is still uncertainty in that area, because lecturers are still saying they are not casual workers. They will not accept the half salaries that they have been paid. So these are some of the things, security, let's not even go there just yet. So there are many, many indices by which Nigerians can measure for themselves, can judge for themselves your effort versus their own experience, because ultimately it is the experience of Nigerians that matter. So from where you stand right now, you are currently campaigning for a new candidate who is about to who is, you know, asking for the vote of Nigerians, and that will determine whether or not your party will continue in power. There are questions as to, from what you have done so far, can you confidently say that, you know, the lives of Nigerians have been better, given, first, the economic, I know you've said that it is a general downturn, but even that, a lot of Nigerians will take you to task on. But let me first of all see how you respond, and then we can drill down perhaps on the economy.
You know, sometimes people actually respond, like you said, what they feel. There is a lot of difference between what you feel and what's really, well, on the ground.
Is it what you feel or what you've experienced?
Yeah, well, experience, yes. When you look at the economic indices, quite, if you like, I mean, they're quite depressing. If you look at especially the Naira exchange rate, and a lot of Nigerians have said, look, the economic management, especially if you want to pass the buck, and I'm not passing the buck here, because ultimately the buck stops on the decks of the APC, because the APC came into office on a three-pronged promise, one of which is to fight insecurity, to boost the economy, and then to fight corruption. And then if you look at it right, if you take any of these pledges, how far, 7 years down the road. And then also you have to juxtapose it, like I said, because you can't run away from the past. The past actually has a way of influencing the present and the future. Now, if you look at it, the exchange rate, you can't say the economy, like, you know, it's been, look at the value. I mean, at the time the APC took over, how much, because it's a mono, if you like, mono, what was the economic term now?
Mono economy.
Mono economic. We're largely dependent on oil as our main source of revenue. And then when we look at it, even now, as it were now, because of so many, if you like, glitches, one of which is how Vandal. Only recently it was discovered some people have somehow been siphoning Nigeria's oil illegally, and we're not meeting our production quota.
And you saw the furore that created that. We only just discovered that.
Exactly. And that is quite telling, not just on the APC, on all Nigerians, how Nigerians could not be that vigilant. Why? And some of...
No. Let's not put this on all Nigerians. I'm here in Abuja. I don't know where you are. I mean, we've been knowing for we've known for the longest of times that we had oil theft in the Niger Delta.
Exactly.
There are people who are saddled with that responsibility. Exactly. And there have been calls for the federal government to exercise its responsibility in that regard and ensure that our pipelines are protected. So if they have neglected their jobs and did not, you know, carry it out as they ought to, then we should, you know, put the blame, you know, squarely where it belongs. You can't put that on all Nigerians.
No, what I mean when Nigerians, sometimes, you see, a while ago, the presidential candidate of the APC, I mean of the PDP, was shown saying, look, security involves all of us, not just one person. It's a government, the people.
Indeed, but it is the responsibility of somebody to
certainly, that's why we have a government.
That's
why we have a government.
Indeed.
Exactly. And see, from what you've said now, if the government wasn't willing, I mean, it would have been swept under the carpet. But look at the expose now. Ordinarily, this thing has been going on for years. But why now, suddenly? Because the government is keen in exposing and then ultimately bringing to book the culprits, those who are responsible for that. And since then, they're doing a lot of, like you say, furore, you understand? So let's go back to this issue about the economy, which has not really, it could have been perhaps better managed. But then, you see, you can't insulate an economy that is solely reliant on oil, on a global market that is so unstable. To stabilize the naira. The function of the economists will tell you sometimes the value of a nation's currency is largely dependent on production. I'm a pedestrian economist.
Did your party really have a plan for the economy? You know, when it came in, what precisely did it want to do with regards to the economy? And what is it proposing to do now that it thinks is different? And what has it identified that it has not quite done well with regards to the economy? And what is it proposing to do now that, you know, things that Nigerians will be, you know, patient enough to renew hope with it?
Well, so many things. So many things. The presidential candidate, like you rightly know, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has private sector experience and he has also public sector experience. He's bringing that to bear on governance. One of which is that the deployment of public resources will be for such that there will be return in investment. He has done that. We've seen that happen in Lagos. In Lagos, under his watch, Lagos moved from, well, a state that was generating, for example, now if you boost income, sometimes the government has said in the past, like the minister, that the problem of Nigeria is not so much that of, but is that of revenue. Revenue, and then if you look at how, if you move away from oil, and I think at a point, non-oil revenue at a point surpassed that of oil revenue. I'm not trying to recall the Minister of Finance said that at a point. I think one was it, I'm not very conversant with the economy, but let's come back to the candidate now. Someone who has the private sector experience, public sector experience, and then has done what he could to turn a state like Lagos from a low revenue yielding state to a very high revenue yielding state. So if you do that, you apply that at the center. Perhaps when you boost revenue, then some of the nation's currency perhaps may be on the rebound, finally. And then look
will it be socially correct to say that Lagos was a low revenue yielding state? Lagos was never a low revenue yielding state.
Yes. When you look at it, in 1999, Lagos were generating 600 million a month. By the time Asiwaju...
If you compare that with what other states were generating, Lagos certainly will not be a low revenue generating state.
Well, at the time Tinubu took over, and at the time he left office, you will say it was. But if you just suppose it with other states, you will say certainly you can't compare Lagos, for example, with Jigawa, because Lagos is the economic hub. If it were a state, Lagos would be, if it were a nation state, people say Lagos would be about the 6th or 5th largest economy on the continent. So you will not say by any stretch of the imagination that Lagos was a low revenue. But what I'm saying, at the time Tinubu took over in 1999, and at the time he left in 2007, he boosted revenue from, well, miserable, if you like, 600 million a month to 7 billion. And that was quite handsome. 7 billion is about the total revenue allocation you grant to most of the nearly 6 northwestern states, and given their population. So you will not say that if you just suppose it was other states, certainly not. But I was saying at the time he took over, that was quite lowly, given what is available in Lagos. It's a port city. Most of the commercial is the commercial nerve center of the whole country. So, and then it has population, it borders the sea, it has so many sources of revenue. So we say that at the time, Lagos was actually the revenue. There was a lot of hemorrhages, a lot of leakages. If you plug that and if you extend that to the federal to the center, probably you begin to have the required revenue. When people pay revenue, they pay taxes as at when due. Perhaps you can check and then find a way to go around relying on oil as a major source of, as your cash cow. Now, if you look at it, really, I always say, yes, you have to go to the back in history, to the antecedents of people jostling for power now at the center. You look at the antecedents, what are they bringing to the table? And more than anything else, Jagaba is bringing, if you like, being a talent hunter. He, in some ways, he's a talent hunter. He's bringing knowledge, because what we have now, if you have a knowledge-driven economy, a knowledge-driven government, perhaps, just perhaps, things may change. And the rest is for those who supervise the process. This is what I'm saying.
Well, we have now since been joined by the spokesperson, or by somebody who's going to be representing the PDP. Dr. Onoha Nnachi is a member of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council and also a financial expert. Good morning, Dr. Onoha. How are you doing this morning? We understand that you might have a flight to catch, but let us see what it is that we can quickly fit in before you have to leave us this morning. Can you quickly tell us what is different, considering the challenges that we're currently facing right now, which the candidate of your party, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, hopes to change if he is elected as president of Nigeria?
Morning, Margaret. Thanks for having me, and thanks to Nigerians. We cannot be comparing day and night trying to compare Atiku with other candidates. Atiku has given Nigerians a covenant which is so binding on him. We all understand what the word covenant means. And in that covenant, the part one of the covenant is strictly on the economy. Strictly on the economy to show how the economy could be realized and put to work. And it is important to know that 3 key areas was identified as the only way and sure path in economic recovery. And one of that is making the private sector be the leaders of the economic recovery actions. Without private sector leadership, in our economy, government can do nothing. So Atiku has made that covenant, that promise that the economy will be led by the private sector. Unlike what we have today, where we have the public sector thinking they will do everything. That is one key area. The second one is the economic teams and the PDP presidential candidate has said, we will take away that monopoly of a government. Government has monopoly in different sectors. We don't operate in liberalized economy, a liberalized market. A typical government is coming to take off those monopolies in those areas so that the market will be open, the market will be liberalized, private sector participations will be open, and that is very key. Thirdly, we also have made it a covenant in our document that market pricing will determine the trade. When you do a market structure where the government keeps market cost of living, cost of things, cost of that, you will never strive, you will never develop, you will suffer all kind of paralysis that goes with the economy, and that is what we are bringing to the table. These 3 key things are very important. We're talking about private sector leading the economy. We're also talking about removing the monopoly of government in that and having a market-determined price situation. And these 3 items that I've mentioned has key drivers to it, key drivers that will make it work, that will make it succeed. A typical key driver that we're talking about is stable macroeconomics. What we have today, inflation rates, you can't talk about it. Forex, you can't talk about it. This is unobtainable because the moment we have such a stable system, certain things will definitely work for us. So, as part of the drivers that will make it work, we're talking about that stable macroeconomy.
Okay.
And secondly, we're talking also to have a PPP structure where the ICRC and BPE will have that power to begin to build our infrastructure stock based on a PPP structure. So ICRC will be more enabled. BPE will also be more enabled to do that, and that is the only way to go. You cannot operate an economy where your infrastructure stock is just about 30%. Globally,
but Dr. Nachi, just 1 second. Yeah, just a second. If you can hear me, these are grand plans, you know, if one can put it that way.
Very well.
But then there are those who would also say, hey, it's just the normal thing that politicians say. What is the plan? I mean, rhetorics are good. They are challenging. They are provocative. But then how emotive will they be? Because it is part of the reason that many people are saying, look, let the major parties just go take a rest because we've tried the 2 of them. We are not comfortable with them. For instance, in all of these issues that you're talking about the economic thrust of your party, what is the plan to ensure? Just a second. Maybe you rope this in because this is where my question is going. Because you've spoken about macroeconomy, but there are those who are more concerned about their microeconomy. For instance, the micro, small, and medium enterprises. What is the plan to ensure that the 41 million or thereabout, or 43 million SMEs that have come down as you know, data goes, to less than 40 million now that are existing, or perhaps even less than that. Now, what is the plan? What's the assurance that they will remain in business? Because you economists always tell us that it's the small businesses that hold or drive the economy. What is the plan for them to ensure that they not only sustain the economy, they continually provide jobs for Nigerians in every sector where they operate? What is the plan for micro, small, and medium enterprises?
Okay, I will respond to these questions with two clear examples that will make you understand what we're in and what we intend to do. Let me just pick, no small and medium enterprises will survive without power stability. None, because everybody needs power to really operate those small and medium enterprises. They cannot afford the cost of the big dens and big everything. But if we try to know as our plan to solve the solution, when PDP handed over government to APC, what we left with them is what
that you have just mentioned. Just 1 second, Dr. Nachi. Just a second. No, on that same issue of electricity that you mentioned, it was under your party that the power sector was privatized, liberalized, whichever word we want to use. And there are several people, including some members of your party, who said that plan at the time didn't work, was not going to work, isn't working, and now you are saying without that electricity, we cannot power our economy. So how are you going to address that? Knowing that it was your party in the first place that started this whole conversation around where we are about the power sector.
You could have waited for me to land, and then this question wouldn't have been necessary. Clear example, as of today, total installed capacity when PDP left government was over 15,000 megawatts. Total generating capacity was about 13,000 megawatts. And then we look at our transmission network was just able to carry about 6,000 megawatts. Now you ask yourself the question, we created the framework and made it possible for more power generations to be economically viable without government involvement as a business. That framework was created. And now, after 7 years, this government that took over could not even evacuate installed capacity or generating capacity to people's homes. And we are coming back to say, first assignment is, how do we evacuate the installed capacity to people's homes? If we can evacuate close to 20,000 installed capacity to people's homes, we'll be home and dry and then we'll move on. Generating is not our issue. The business of generation, the model has been created. They only just need to have a transmission link that can carry it to the homes, and we make MBET has the capacity to sign the power purchase agreement. Every generating company all over the world, all they just care about, can I have a PPA that work? Once you sign a PPA that work, then the generation will come on. But what is important for us, first and foremost, our quick win is we want to take, within the shortest possible time, take our installed capacity to homes and take it to the industries. Once that installed capacity gets to the industry, the SME will pick up. And I'll take you to another sector for you to pick about it. The agri sector. The Land Use Act is quite long overdue for reforms. They were propositioned by our government before PDP left the government. But this government has refused to do anything about it. But let me assure you, if we harness our natural resources, what Article government is coming to do, converting abundant natural resources to national assets, and those assets will be available for development. We cannot run our agro system where over 20-something% of our GDP is dependent on agriculture. It means that 70-something millions are working, but we are unable to feed our nation. So we have done our studies, and we know that the solution is how can we mechanize agriculture? I'll give you a simple example. Today, we still do import chicken. But do you realize that this can be solved within a year? If you have 10 locations, 10 states, establish a poultry farm of 1 million birds, and it can be solved. And we have the plan to do that. We have the intention to do that. How many commodity markets? Because What encourages farmers to farm is the ability of off-takers. And what encourages off-takers is the ability to have a market to sell that. As part of our plan, which is contained in our program, we will establish more commodity market and enhance existing commodity market so that these goods can be traded. And the most important thing you need to know about agriculture is ability to de-risk the financing of agriculture.
Mr. Nnachi, if I may come in there, interesting plan that you have outlined, and you talk about increasing or shoring up installed capacity should your government win. Speaking of which, are you going to be, should your government win, are you going to sustain or continue the policy, the Siemens deal of the current federal government, worth over $63 million, for which the government has promised that transmitters would soon arrive? So would your government be continuing with that policy? And then how would you address this faulty tripod of generation, transmission, and distribution started by your government that is still currently not working?
Okay, I will tell you, there's nothing faulty about the structure of the Nigerian power system. It's just about implementation and the will to implement it. One of the things that is very frank and we should make it work better for us is we redesign our transmission network to take the powers home. That's what you need to understand. If the cement project has that component, and by the way, every government, new government that takes over, must review all existing transactions, must review all existing policies of the past government and adapt the ones they need to adapt. Some of us may not have full disclosure of the contract. We only have a disclosure of the technical aspect of it. And we cannot go beyond that technical aspect of it until the full transaction is made available. There's nothing to throw away, but you just can review it and then see where you can adapt it. If everything is good in the contract, there's nothing wrong about it. But after review and you find otherwise, then you know what to do. But bringing it back to this, and I need to make it clearly, generation, Nigeria has set up a model for generation that is perfect and sound. Where we have issues is from our distribution and our transmission. You cannot produce what you cannot take to the home. I just mentioned it, we have close to 20,000 installed capacity. How can we take it home? It's our concern now. And for any leadership coming to power, if that is not your concern, then there's something wrong. And we have done our analysis and come up with a conclusive approach on how we are going to take this power. The current transmission structure we have is not good. It's not going to run us well. We have a lot of technical losses associated with it. We have a lot of commercial losses associated with it. It is our view that will be reviewed and a new design will be put in place, because our first target, our quick win, is to take our installed capacity to our home. And I ask this a simple question for those of you that live in Abuja that are listening to me. During PDP administration, when we took over government, there was only one substation in the entire Abuja. But under PDP administrations, you can count 4 new substations that were built in Abuja. And I choose to ask this question. How many new substations has APC done in 7 years? The populations of the cities are growing. The development are expanding. So you're not doing this. And then you're not doing this. So what do you expect? A national grid collapse. You can't take a city that has a population of maybe 2 million and in a year it has grown to 2.5 and going to 3 or 4 million, and you don't do anything. So it's clearly obvious. Development is a continuum, and the process must be followed. And as I stated, give an example of Abuja. When we took over government in 19, Abuja had only 1 substation. But before we left government, there were additional 4 substations, which guarantees more power to get to home. So our major task is how can we take power to home? And that is what is our first week and our first week. Thank you.
Let me quickly ask you, when you say that you're going to be letting the private sector lead, how do you intend to let them lead?
there are various approaches to let the private sector lead. You can bring the private sector in through privatizations, you can bring the private sector through commercialization, and you can bring the private sector through enabling environments. The quick one, let me pick another sector and give you this analysis for you to understand. What we have, the total capital we have locked down in real estate is very alarming. It runs into hundreds of trillions. We cannot unlock it, but we are coming to allow the private sector. Many of the private sector has made the proposition of mortgage refinancing. Before we left government, we instituted that mortgage refinancing so that the next government can take it and run. But you know what happened? They just stopped the mortgage refinancing because they don't even understand it. Because that's the problem of these administrations. When you see things have been done, you can't take it and run with it. No, I'm giving this example of mortgage refinancing. People have homes that they can even refinance and unlock it and use the money for business and still remains as a homeowner. But because we created a framework, we created the agents, we created the authority to do it, and we handed it over to this government for continuity. You know what? For lack of ideas, for their idiosyncrasies, they just abandon it. So letting the private sector lead, I'm giving this as an example, the private sector will be allowed to lead that mortgage refinance to unlock over 300 trillions that are tied in real estate in Nigeria today. Once we're unlocking, these funds will go back into the market. I see people running business have invested in assets, property, where the office is, or where they live on. But they run short of cash. They go to the bank, they can't borrow money in situations. But once you have the private sector lead in mortgage refinancing as an example, that will unlock the funding and this will become available for it. And that is very simple to do. Government has no business doing business, but they will create the framework, create the enabling environment, and that will make it work. Take an example, if we begin to concentrate our industries in clusters.
Dr. Nanchis, I have to interrupt you a bit there. If you can hear me, thank you for that example. Yes. Let me just quickly bring it to Mr. Ali, Mohammed Ali. You have listened to him, and it would seem that from what he has said, it looks like the APC so far has shown some cluelessness with regards to some of the assets that were handed over to it from the PDP. And even ideas which they started, and doesn't look like you're able to continue with from the examples that he's given.
Well, actually, if you look at it, the PDP, which was dislodged in 2015, actually handed, if you like, zero assets to the APC. Why? Because...
That cannot be correct.
Well, you just said so. You know what I mean? When it comes to power, especially, you will see that perhaps the PDP have a lot of questions to answer, and some of them are in the public domain. We said it over and over again. For a party, well, I don't want to go that route, but then he brought it up about handing assets to the APC. And now, if you look at the PDP expended a whopping $16 billion on power. But by 2015, when it hurriedly sold the Gencos, what we have now as Gencos, which later on become Gencos and then Discos, what we have now. Yeah, he said something about having installed capacity of 20,000 megawatts. But you see, if you look at it, how did the sales of these Gencos actually impact? How did it improve power supply? Because you can't run away from that. Because it was from that going forward that perhaps you have to build on that. And since the APC came, of course, we've had intermittent collapse of the national grid. Why? For a number of reasons. Some of them we know. Because even if you manage to meet that, if you generate that much power, you can't distribute because the distribution lines are old, they are tired, they are exhausted. And then coupled with the fact that we're facing, like, a lot of insecurity there, and, So, but let's look at even the question here. I mean, these assets, how are they? If you look at the Gencos now, the Gencos, some of them were sold actually when they were privatized at less than the value. And some of those who It's in the public domain. Some of those who actually
For
invested.
a number of people who actually know the power sector, they know that the problem is, the majority of the problem, yes, the GENCOs do have issues, I mean, but the major problem is not with the GENCOs. They know that the problem is with transmission, which is still firmly in the hands of government, and also with distribution. The distribution companies do not have capacity. In many instances, they're struggling with funding. The federal government has tried to give it some funding through MBET, etc. But there have been questions as to, you know, if the federal government had not given it, had given itself, put this way, you know, the same funding which it seems to be providing the private sector right now, whether or not the private sector, whether or not government itself would not have been able to do far better than what we're currently seeing.
Well, you see, when you bring issue, you understand, I'm not really in the position now to say what the government, quite all right, is an APC government, but I am not in the government, so I cannot really say to what extent the government has done that much it has done in that aspect. So what I would say is, yes, maybe the challenges in the distribution, like I said, a lot of the distribution lines are aged, they are tired, they are exhausted. Maybe that's a problem. And the discourse themselves, the distribution companies, like we know, some of them, what manner of expertise have they brought to bear in the distribution?
So there are big questions as to what precisely you're going to be doing different. Because we listened to your candidate there, and he says that, you know, he emphasized over and over again that he wants to bring affordable electricity to Nigerians. And I think that, you know, maybe there needs to be a sitting down, you know, amongst members of the APC Presidential Campaign Council to, you know, drill down on when you say that, when your candidate says that, what precisely does it mean? Because for too many years, Nigerians have had to pay for darkness. For too many years, we've had to run on an inefficient mode of providing electricity, and in many instances, very expensive and also quite unsustainable. That's what many businesses have had to, the model they've had to, you know, adopt to be able to, you know, even make any headway at all. And we know that we cannot continue like this. So there needs to be a clarity on when your candidate says electricity, providing affordable electricity is important to him. What precisely does he mean?
Well, you know, apart from boosting capacity to generate, we're looking at renewable energy as an alternative. A lot of people have not explored that avenue. How do you perhaps complement what you have now with alternative, with green energy is the way to go. Worldwide, people are moving away from fossil fuel. They're moving away from hydro. They're investing. And for countries in Africa, for example, where, if you like, energy, especially coming from the sun, alternative green energy, with that, I'm sure perhaps if you look at it very well, you invest, and then with time, you can have an alternative, cheaper source of energy, which can do a lot of things, especially for SMEs. You can do a lot with renewable energy, with green energy. It will save you a lot of cost. A lot of people have gone that route. In homes, in small businesses, they are using alternative green energy to power their business. But we
also know that the initial deposits that you need, the initial cost of providing the materials to harness the green energy is not cheap. It doesn't come cheap. So there were questions as to how you intend to do that. You know, we're totally out of time. I mean,
well, that's one quick point, Mape, there. Because, look, what the APC presidential candidate is saying that, look, he will provide certain industrial hub at the geopolitical level. And then besides that, they will make funds available, loans available to small businesses so that they can have these alternative sources of energy.
Well, I know that we'll certainly have more room for engagement for both the PDP and the APC and other political parties. Even after now, we're still going to be talking politics. But we have to thank you both. Hope to see you in the course of the campaigns.
Certainly.
It's a pretty lengthy period. Dr. Onohan Nachi, thank you so much for finding time to join us this morning. He's a member of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council and a financial expert. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And Mr. Ali Mohammed Ali is the Deputy Director, Media and Publicity of the APC Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
Well, let's take a break at this point, but we'll come back. As I said earlier, we will be discussing politics, some more politics. This time around, what has happened with the Labour Party candidate and the initial statement made by the governor of Anambra State, Professor Chukwuma Soludo. In just a moment, please stay with us.
Well, a statement put out this morning by the INEC chairman tells us it's exactly 100 days to the elections of 2023, February 25, Saturday, 8:30. And among other things that he said is that political parties and political leaders should conduct their campaigns peacefully, eschewing divisiveness, rancor, and violence. Well, that's the statement right there, and a number of things you're going to be seeing about that in the course of time. But let's speak to that and a number of other things that has been raised in previous conversations, especially the track that you just saw from the candidate of the Labour Party with OSA Director, who is spokesman, Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council. He joins us here in our studio. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, let's begin with that, I don't know what to call it, difference, conversation, public conversation between your candidate, the former governor of Anambra State, and the current governor of Anambra State. How is the campaign handling that?
Yeah, ideally, we didn't want to dignify the comment with a response, because as you've just listened to the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, he responded in a very dignified and measured manner, as he wants to do. And the National Party chairman of the Labour Party, Comrade Julius Abure, has also responded. And yesterday on your program, Politics Today, the Director General of the Labour Party Campaign Council, Dr. Doyin Okupe, also responded to the issue. What I would like to see, or what the campaign council would like to ask, is that there are certain questions arising from the unwarranted vituperations of Governor Soludo against the candidate of the Labour Party. One, ask yourself, is Soludo a member of the Labour Party? He is a member of APGA, All Progressive Grand Alliance, and APGA has a presidential candidate. Why is he not campaigning for his candidate? Even from his statement, or what I would regard as his diatribe, he took his candidate under the bus. He didn't even give him any consideration. Why is he not campaigning for another party and trying to demarcate the Labour Party candidate? And secondly, you appreciate the fact that Soludo is a major beneficiary of the legacy of Peter Obi. In the whole of the Southeast and indeed the country, the only place APGA wins election is Anambra State. And that is because the pioneer governor, Peter Obi, left a solid legacy, served his people diligently, and the people decided to be rewarding APGA for that.
But don't also forget that your party candidate swore that he would never leave APGA. Now he has done that twice.
Well, I'm not a politician. He's in a better position to answer that, and I'm not even aware of that, but he's in a better position to answer that. And you also know that there are times you make statements, and that is why we always caution that you must not be extreme in your pronouncement, because there are certain forces that could come to play to make you change your mind. And the truth is that, it is only a coward that does not change his own mind when faced with current reality and fresh information. So I'm sure the information available before our candidate made him change his mind.
Mr. Director, you talk about vituperations, and if we look at, if we examine the issues at hand, you know, vituperations go both ways, both for your candidate in question and the governor of Anambra State, particularly because I watched that edition of Politics Today, and on both occasions when he was asked questions about, you know, the Labour Party candidate and former governor, he chose to respond moderately, and when he was asked about the investment made by your candidate when he was governor, he said, you know, investments that are now worthless, for which your candidate has now confirmed that when it was made at the time, it was worth 50 naira and is now 5 naira. So isn't this, you know, much ado about nothing, particularly when you consider that after he made those comments, now confirmed by your candidate, he said he was attacked and his family members were attacked. Were those attacks warranted?
Certainly unwarranted. No attack is necessary in politics. And that is why I respect President Goodluck Jonathan when he said his election is not worth the blood of any Nigerian. And our candidate has continuously insisted that all obedience should refrain from even cyberbullying and attack on anyone. It is a decision.
How seriously has that comment been taken by the obedience, as you call them?
Yeah, but you see, this is a process. The truth is that it has moderated a lot of the obedient followers.
You think it has?
Yeah, it has.
How?
Because I mean, you are not seeing so much of cyberbullying, except if they need to defend, you know, because when you are attacked, it's not everybody can fold their hands or turn the other cheek for you.
If it has, would we have had this, you know, level attack on the Anambra governor? He went as far as saying that even, you know, the arrest of gunmen who went to attack his hometown, you know, just after that interview, you know, there were insinuations that he had something to do with it. So have obedience really been moderated? If obedience, you know, are responsible for, you know, the vituperations on the Anambra governor before he came out to speak his mind.
Thank God you said there are indications. These are not evidential facts. These are not something that you can, material evidence that you can point to and say, yes, it is the obedient people that did it. Don't forget that Anambra State has been quite restive for some time. So it is easy during this kind of political period for you to pin some of those things on any candidate that you are not supporting. So you cannot for sure say that those things were done by obedient or supporters of Peter Obi. But I can tell you for sure, Peter Obi is against violence. You even saw his response at the Lagos Business School alumni. Very measured, very dignified. And he insisted that government is a continuum. If you say it is now worthless, you have been given an opportunity now. Please, you continue from there and make it better.
Well, governance is certainly a continuum, but one of the things that a number of people would always want to raise is if governance is a continuum, there is supposed to be progression, progress, so to speak. Now, you just said now that Anambra is restive at the, you know, has been restive over a little bit of time, but if the foundations were solidly laid by your candidate when he was governor, and in order seeing into the future and knowing that these things are likely to happen because of the nature of the people and all of that, would we be having the kind of what you call restiveness now in Anambra, if the foundations were solid enough?
You have to contextualize that. The issue of security or insecurity in Anambra State and the Southeast is not peculiar to Anambra alone. It's a product of what I would call regional agitations, you know, where the IPOB is insisting on self-determination, just like you have in the Northeast. It's generally across the board. And constitutionally, even though the chief executive of the state is the chief security officer, they have no control over the security apparatus.
So you're excusing your candidates of
no.
responsibility for laying a proper foundation that
he
would have...
He did lay a proper foundation because you are aware...
What kind of foundation did he lay for security when he was in Anambra as governor?
Yes, you are aware that one of the campaign vital points that my candidate or our candidate of the Labour Party has been raising is that he was given a clean bill of health as governor of Anambra State by the then Inspector General of Police that Anambra State was crime-free. And that is why we are saying that Governor should continue. It was left for those who took over the reins of power after him to sustain and
which
improve.
raises the challenge, because there is something they say in leadership, in the leadership space, that the fruit of success of a leader is not in when the person is in office, but after the person has left the office, how sustainable his legacies are. That's the challenge.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That you will even discover that even in advanced democracies, I mean, like for instance, when Donald Trump took over in America, it was debatable. A lot of people felt that democratic values suffered recession. Will you now blame Barack Obama for that? It is the character and personality of the individual, especially in an environment of like our country, where there are no defined ideological boundaries that leaders operate or parties operate. So you have a situation where you have successes in leadership based on the strength of character of the person who is in power. And once he leaves and you have someone else, he will also bring his character to bear on leadership. It might be positive, it might be negative.
But then there are those who will also raise issues around the strength of the institutions that he left, while he was in office. How strong were those institutions to resist any, what you call leadership differences that could toggle the foundations that the leader lays?
There's no constitutional room for state police. We have a federal police. Because of the strength of his character and his commitment, to security, he had a very good working relationship with the Nigerian police to the extent that they were able to ensure safety of lives and properties in Anambra State with all the security network. So and since you don't have state police, when he left, the onus was on the governor that succeeded him to have continued from there or even built on that. So if there is a shortfall in terms of commitment to security, you can't blame my candidate for that. Because he did his bit while he was there.
Perhaps we should leave the past behind. I recall that you started by reminding us that INEC has said it's 100 days to the election. Yeah. So let's take a peek into the future. Some of the candidates are positioning to the extent that they're saying that, if elected, they would let the private sector lead. And it's reminiscent of one of the major promises of your candidate. He has said that he's going to move Nigeria from a
consumption to production,
consuming nation to a producing nation. To look at his manifesto, he specifically notes that he's going to make Nigeria a fourth industrial revolution capital with the development of new technologies. The question is, how is he going to achieve this?
Yes. One of the 7-point agenda is that Nigeria is a monoproduct economy with heavy reliance on oil, and that he wants to leapfrog it to embrace the fourth industrial revolution, where there will be a convergence of Internet of Things, robotics, and artificial intelligence to catalyze and promote economy and development, in the sense that you are going to technologize a technologized economy using modern technology to promote and stimulate growth. And what does that mean? We are in a global world today, a global village, where people sit down at home, like you have in the case of boat. A man who is not a driver, a man who does not own any car, is controlling millions of vehicles and raking in millions of dollars. You have Jeff Bezos in Amazon, doing his own thing in terms of book distribution and storage. So he is saying that you have a vibrant youthful energy. 54% of Nigerian population are youth under 30, that he wants to tap into that potential to ensure that they have training and retraining in IT. And we have a collaboration with international organizations to the extent that they will be able to stimulate growth and development. So all he needs to do, or all he wants to do, is to provide the enabling environment for business to thrive using technology.
The question
which is brilliant. But we run a multi-party, kind of democracy now, which is even emerging and expanding, particularly with the entry of your candidate. So how will this document be embraced if we have, different parties emerging victorious at different levels in different states of the federation? So how will this document be fully embraced? How will your candidate cause it to be fully embraced nationally?
Yeah, the issue is that, there's what you call broken legislator in democracies where a party does not have a total majority in the House. Then that is when you're being politically savvy, when your leadership quality comes into play. So our leader has demonstrated this kind of leadership at a micro level in Anambra State, and I'm not in any doubt that he will do it if given the opportunity at the national level. And he will only just, through persuasion, through conciliation, through consensus building, and get a buy-in of all the states. For instance, when Fashola was the governor of Lagos State, I can tell you that people were coming to Lagos to just get a roadmap. But people were duplicating what was happening in Lagos all over the states because you want progress. So if my candidate or the candidate of the Labour Party is able to show that, yes, this is the way to go, and pragmatically people can see the benefit of these things, your state will have no choice than to key him, because you have people from that state who will say, no, please, Mr. Governor, let's put politics aside.
But the concern is your party is not presenting candidates as it ought to, particularly for this 2023 election.
Yeah, people have said that our candidate, our party does not have a national spread, but that's neither here nor there, because the statistics they are banding around, does not really hold water. I agree that in some states we don't have candidates in the going for the National Assembly elections, that the Senate and the House of Rep. But I can tell you that nothing is so good that it cannot be better. Even those who are in other parties, when they see what is happening in Labour Party, for the benefit of the generality of the masses, will support the program.
Would you say that the ethos of your party, of your candidate, from consumption to production, would you say it is an ethos that is original to him or to your Labour Party?
Well, it's just like when you talk about the issue of research. You and I know that in academics, we are not really reinventing the wheel. You are only deepening the tentacles, the taproot of knowledge in a particular area. So it is possible. People have been using that. It's possible that people use that language. But what he is saying is that it is time Nigeria should transit from consumption to production.
Because there is a book written in 2017 by Professor Oyelaron Yeyinka titled From Consumption to Production, and is specifically talking about Nigeria. Is that where your candidate got the ethos from?
I mean, there's always a pool of knowledge out there that you can tap knowledge from. Just like these crises about hope, renew hope, and no hope, And like the explanation, hope is an English language. I mean, it is not the entitlement of anyone. However, for this purpose of plagiarism, you must cite the source of your words or your sentence, So I would say that my candidate, people just restrict him to the fact that because he jokingly said that he's a trader, he's a trader, he has a store, and he was just governor of Anambra State.
So you can't say for sure whether or not, he copied it or lifted it from
No,
there.
he didn't copy, but there's a pool of knowledge out there that he definitely got all these things from. For example, now, our manifesto is not yet out because it's still being reworked and people are making input. And that is why I'm challenging all the presidential candidates to engage in debate. This debate is not for fun.
You just raised an issue that I was going to question you about, ask you a question around, which was that of the manifesto. One of your spokesperson had come on air to say that your candidate was delaying release of his manifesto because he didn't want it copied or plagiarized by other political parties. Now, other political parties have released their own manifestos. They are in the public domain. It's easy for anyone to assume that Labour Party withdrew its first draft in order that it can copy one or two things from other political parties.
I think by the time it comes out, you will be the better judge.
But don't forget that he also said it at that you know, he made that statement, you know, Bukola, you know, cited it earlier, where he was speaking. He said that everyone who is going to be campaigning will be saying, he said they all will be saying the same thing. Yes. So how is your manifesto going to be different?
When you say they will all be saying the same thing, that's a general statement. There are areas you have to boil down to specific. For example, now, everyone will say, we want to move from consumption to production. Everyone will say, we want to guarantee security. Everyone will say, we want to ensure that we have power. Because these are basic things. But how you do it is what will be the difference.
Okay, I guess we'll have to wait for that plan, because it's not just what you say you're going to do, it is the how Nigerians are going to be interested in. So we'll wait for your manifesto then. When is it likely to come out?
Within the next 7 days.
Within the next 7 days. So that means by this time next week, Tuesday, it will be out.
Sure.
Okay.
So perhaps we'll have you back on the program.
Okay.
I'll be glad to be here.
OSA Director, Spokesman, Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council, thank you so much for joining us this morning and for giving us your perspectives.
Thank you very much. It's nice being here.
Some of your own messages, contribution to the program. Let's begin with this one by Ebuka, who says, regarding renewable energy, the Katsina windmill project is in its 15th year with no clear end in sight. Most northern Nigeria regions have flat lands and plenty sun hours to support solar energies. Yet, both past and present governments have been unable to capitalize on this.
Well, Ayo, it seems this one is directed at you, a reaction from one of the viewers. And she says, I wonder if this is a he or a she. Well, she says, very funny question to ask. There was a governor before Peter Obi. There was another governor after Peter Obi, before Soludo. You are blaming Peter Obi for insecurity in Anambra. With Peter Obi in Anambra, Anambra was named the safest place. Well, drawing the ire of the obedience is not something you want to do, Ayo.
I'm not interested in that.
Well, this one is from Professor Inakena, who says economic prosperity can't be enthroned in an atmosphere of chaos and insecurity. Our political elites and parties must re-evaluate our security architecture and come out with implementable policies to forestall a total anarchy amidst profane economic poverty in Nigeria. Quite a lot to to reflect on there in this particular tweet. Thank you so much for sending them in. Thank you for your engagement with us this morning and for being a part of the program. And thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for sharing your day with us. We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Everyone says get involved. We say the same. Have a wonderful day. I'm Ayo Makinde.